The rhythmic click of my camera shutter filled the crisp Seattle air as I adjusted my lens, capturing the final moments of twilight over Elliott Bay. My name is Alex Turner, and at 28, I've spent the last 6 years building my career as a freelance travel photographer. Tonight's shoot had taken me to Cary Park, where the Space Needle stood tall against the fading light. As I packed up my equipment, carefully stowing lenses and adjusting tripod legs, I noticed movement from the corner of my eye. Blue and red lights flashed in the distance, growing brighter as they approached. My heart sank. I'd been so absorbed in my work that I hadn't realized I'd parked in a loading zone. Cursing under my breath, I quickly gathered my gear, trying to remember where I'd put my registration among the organized chaos of camera bags and tripods scattered across my back seat. The patrol car pulled up behind me, its lights casting an official glow across my weathered Subaru Outback. I rolled down my window, already reaching for my wallet as heavy footsteps approached. "License and registration, please," came a deep, commanding voice. When I looked up, my practiced apology caught in my throat. Standing there was Officer Chris Ramirez, his broad shoulders filling the frame of my driver's side window. His dark uniform accentuated sharp cheekbones and piercing brown eyes that seemed to see right through me. Our fingers brushed briefly during the exchange of documents, sending an unexpected shiver through my body. Chris's flashlight beam swept through my car, illuminating my collection of expensive camera equipment. "That's quite the setup you've got there," he observed, his professional demeanor softening slightly. "What kind of photography do you do?" I explained my work, watching as his interest visibly grew. The conversation flowed naturally, extending far beyond what one might expect during a routine traffic stop. Chris shared how he'd always been fascinated by photography, though his own attempts had been limited to snapshots on his phone. When he returned to his patrol car with my documents, I found myself watching him more closely than necessary. His movements were efficient yet graceful, and I couldn't help noticing how his uniform fit across his athletic frame. "Stop it, Alex," I scolded myself. "He's just doing his job." But even as I tried to rationalize my reaction, I couldn't deny the spark of connection I'd felt during our brief interaction. 3 days later, as I set up my equipment at Gasworks Park hoping to capture the sunset over Lake Union, a familiar voice sent a jolt through my system. "We meet again, Mr. Turner," Chris said, his deep voice carrying across the grass. But this time he wasn't in uniform. Instead, he wore dark jeans that hugged his muscular legs and a fitted navy sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to face him, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigated to the evening's shots. Chris leaned closer to my window, his cologne a subtle blend of sandalwood and spice, filling the space between us. As I scrolled through the images, his face lit up with genuine interest. "These are incredible," he said, pointing to a long exposure shot of the city's skyline. "How did you manage to capture the light trails without overexposing the buildings?" His questions weren't just polite, small talk. They demonstrated a real understanding of photography techniques. I found myself relaxing, explaining about aperture settings and neutral density filters, watching his expressive eyes light up with each technical detail. For the next hour, we talked photography while waiting for the perfect light. Chris's interest was genuine and thoughtful, asking questions about everything from ISO settings to composition rules. As we discussed the interplay of natural and artificial light, I found myself leaning closer to explain technical details, our shoulders occasionally brushing. The air between us crackled with unspoken tension, each accidental touch sending electric shocks through my body. When the sun finally began its descent, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I caught Chris watching me instead of the sunset. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. "You get this look when you're concentrating," he said softly. "It's captivating." Our eyes met, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. The world narrowed to just us, the distant traffic noise fading into background noise. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the spell. "I have to go," he said, reluctantly pulling out his business card. "If you're ever interested in giving those photography lessons." That night, lying in bed staring at his card, I wrestled with indecision. Would texting him seem too eager, too obvious? Did he really mean it, or was he just being polite? Around midnight, unable to resist any longer, I typed out a simple message. "Thanks for keeping me company today." The sunset shots turned out great. Alex. To my surprise, his response came almost immediately. "Oh, glad I could help. When's your next shoot?" Over the next few weeks, our text conversations flowed effortlessly, moving beyond photography to share stories about our lives, our dreams, and our fears. We met for coffee, then lunch, each encounter leaving me more captivated by Chris's depth and authenticity. During one particularly memorable afternoon at a small cafe near Pike Place Market, he opened up about his struggle between following family tradition in law enforcement and pursuing his artistic passions. "Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd chosen a different path," he confessed, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "But then I wouldn't have met you," he added, meeting my eyes with an intensity that made my breath catch. Our weekends became filled with photography adventures across the city. Sometimes we'd actually take photos, but more often we'd find ourselves talking for hours, sharing pieces of our souls with each other. One chilly morning at Discovery Park, as we waited for the fog to lift from Puget Sound, Chris shared how he'd known he was gay since his teenage years, but had never felt comfortable being open about it, especially within the police department. "You make me want to be brave," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. To live authentically like you do with your photography." His vulnerability touched something deep within me, strengthening the bond between us with each passing day. One crisp October evening, we found ourselves atop Queen Anne Hill, overlooking the city lights that sparkled like diamonds against the dark velvet sky. Chris had brought coffee for both of us, the steam curling invitingly in the cool air. As we sat close together on a weathered bench, I finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been burning in my mind for weeks. "Why did you really pull me over that night?" I ventured, taking a careful sip of my latte. Chris chuckled, a sheepish expression crossing his handsome features. "You were speeding," he admitted, "but honestly, I'd noticed you at Cary Park several times before. There aren't many people taking photos at midnight, especially with such dedication." My heart raced as he continued. "I was curious about you. Watching you work, completely absorbed in your craft, it drew me in." His confession hit me like a tidal wave, confirming what I'd hoped but never dared to believe. We were sitting so close that our shoulders touched, Chris's body heat mingling with mine in the cool night air. Gathering every ounce of courage I possessed, I turned to face him. "Chris," I whispered, my voice trembling with anticipation. But before I could finish my thought, he reached out, cupping my face in his strong hands. His brown eyes searched mine, filled with a mixture of longing and uncertainty. Then, slowly, deliberately, he closed the distance between us. The first brush of his lips against mine was electric, sending shockwaves through my entire being. His kiss was gentle yet insistent, filled with all the pent-up desire of our weeks' long dance around each other. I melted into him, every rational thought dissolving as our bodies pressed closer together. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathless, the city lights blurring through my tear-filled eyes. I've wanted to do that since the night I pulled you over, Chris confessed, his forehead resting against mine. I've wanted you to, I admitted, pulling him in for another kiss. Each touch of his lips erased another layer of doubt until all that remained was the pure, undeniable truth of our connection. In that moment, surrounded by the city we both loved, everything changed. We weren't just two people who had met by chance anymore. We had become something more, something extraordinary. As Chris's arms wrapped around me, holding me as if I were the most precious thing in his world, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. In the weeks that followed our kiss atop Queen Anne Hill, reality began to intrude upon our newfound happiness. Chris grew increasingly cautious, constantly checking his surroundings whenever we met in public places. His phone calls became shorter, more guarded, as if he feared someone might overhear our intimate conversations. One evening, he arrived at my apartment looking troubled, his usual confident stride replaced with hesitant steps. Martinez, my partner? He began, pacing my living room floor. He asked about you today. My stomach dropped as I remembered our chance meeting at a coffee shop the previous afternoon. What did you tell him? I asked, already knowing the answer. That you're teaching me photography. Chris replied, running a hand through his dark hair. But Alex, he stopped mid-sentence, correcting himself. I'm not stupid. Moving to him, I placed my hands on his shoulders, stopping his restless pacing. Hey, look at me, I insisted, meeting his worried eyes with determination. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. Chris pulled me into a tight embrace, burying his face in my hair. I'm not ashamed of us, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm just not ready for everything to change. The strain began to show in subtle ways. Chris started canceling our plans at the last minute, citing work commitments or family obligations. When we did meet, he was constantly scanning our surroundings, flinching at every approaching figure. One rainy evening, driving home from a wedding shoot, I saw familiar blue and red lights flashing in my rearview mirror. My heart leapt. It was Chris's patrol car. Pulling over, I watched him approach my window, fully in character as Officer Ramirez. License and registration, please, he said, his professional mask firmly in place. As I handed over my documents, I saw the worry etched in his features. Step out of the car, please, Mr. Turner, he instructed. Confused and concerned, I complied, leading me to the space between our vehicles, away from his patrol car's cameras. He spoke urgently. Martinez is following me tonight. He's been suspicious, watching my routes. I had to make this look legitimate. The rain soaked through our clothes as we stood there, maintaining a professional distance, while our hearts ached for contact. When he finally handed back my license, with a terse, "Drive safely, Mr. Turner," I watched him walk back to his patrol car, his shoulders tense under his wet uniform. That night, he texted me, "Come over, please." When I arrived at his apartment, he was still in his damp uniform, pacing anxiously. Without a word, he pulled me into a desperate kiss, holding me as if afraid I might disappear. "I can't keep doing this," he confessed when we finally broke apart. "Hiding, pretending, watching every move. It's killing me." Fear gripped my heart as I asked, "What are you saying?" Chris took a deep breath, his brown eyes locking onto mine. "I'm saying I want to stop hiding. I love you, and I'm tired of acting like you're just some photographer teaching me about cameras." My heart soared even as anxiety churned in my stomach. "Are you sure? What about your job, your family?" Chris's jaw tightened with determination. "My job has anti-discrimination policies for a reason, and my family, they'll either accept it or they won't. But I can't build a life with you if I'm living in shadows." Odd. That night marked a turning point in our relationship, setting us on a path that would test our courage and commitment in ways we could never have anticipated. The decision to come out transformed Chris in ways I never could have predicted. Starting with Martinez, his trusted partner, he began revealing our relationship to those closest to him. To our surprise and gratitude, Martinez's response was immediate acceptance. "Man, I've known for months." He laughed, clapping Chris on the back. "I was just waiting for you to tell me." This early support gave Chris the confidence to continue opening up to others. Next came Maria, Chris's younger sister, whose enthusiastic embrace nearly knocked him off his feet. "Finally!" she exclaimed, demanding to meet me immediately. "I've been wondering when you'd bring someone special home." Her unconditional acceptance proved invaluable, especially when it came to their parents. The conversation with Mrs. Ramirez was more complex. Chris's father, a retired police captain, needed time to process the news, retreating to his study for several days. But his mother, after her initial shock, became our strongest ally. "You know," she told Chris one evening, "your father and I always wanted you to be happy. This Alex seems to make you shine brighter than we've seen in years." Her words carried weight, gradually softening Mr. Ramirez's stance. As winter settled over Seattle, our relationship evolved from clandestine meetings to shared experiences in the open. Chris began leaving some of his belongings at my apartment, a spare uniform shirt here, a favorite book there, while I kept my camera equipment at his place for our weekend photography adventures. One snowy evening, as we walked hand in hand through Volunteer Park, Chris suddenly stopped near a familiar spot by the conservatory. "Remember when we used to do this separately?" he asked, gesturing to our linked hands, always keeping a careful distance. I squeezed his hand, feeling tears prick my eyes. Feels like a lifetime ago. He led me to the exact location where I'd taken that first night photograph of the city, the one I'd shown him during our fateful traffic stop. There, gathered near the water's edge, stood a small group of people, Martinez, Maria, and, to my astonishment, Chris's parents. My confusion must have shown on my face, because Chris just smiled and positioned me exactly where I'd stood that first night with my camera. "Alex," he began, his voice shaking slightly, "this is where I first saw you months before I pulled you over. You were setting up your tripod, completely absorbed in capturing the perfect shot. I was on patrol, and something about you just caught my eye." Taking both my hands in his, Chris dropped to one knee in the snow, pulling out a small box. "I drove past this spot every night after that, hoping to see you again. When I finally had an excuse to pull you over, I was so nervous I almost forgot to ask for your license." Tears streamed down my face as he continued. "You changed my life, Alex Turner." You helped me find the courage to be myself, to live honestly. Every day with you makes me want to be a better person, a better officer, a better man. Will you marry me?" Through my tears, I saw his family watching us, his mother openly crying, his father struggling to contain his own emotions. Martinez grinning broadly, and Maria filming everything on her phone. "Yes," I managed to whisper. "Absolutely, yes." As Chris slipped the ring onto my finger and stood to kiss me, cheers erupted from our small audience. The kiss tasted of tears and joy and promise, sealing our future together in front of those who mattered most. Later that night, at our favorite restaurant where Chris had arranged a celebration dinner, his father pulled me aside. "I wasn't sure about this at first," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "Well, because—" he gestured vaguely. "But because being a cop's spouse isn't easy. There's worry, fear, late nights. But watching my son these past months, seeing how happy you make him, how you've helped him become more himself, well, I just wanted to say welcome to the family, son." His words completed the circle of acceptance that had begun with Chris's courage to live authentically, proving that love, when embraced with honesty and bravery, could transform not just two lives, but an entire community. Spring's arrival brought with it a whirlwind of wedding preparations and new beginnings. We chose to hold our ceremony in the Capitol Hill district, where countless evenings had found us capturing the city's beauty through our lenses. To our surprise and gratitude, Chris's precinct proved remarkably supportive, with fellow officers volunteering to assist with security arrangements and logistical details. The day before our wedding, we returned to Cary Park, where our story had begun. Leaning against Chris's patrol car, I reflected on how far we'd come. Hard to believe it all started with a parking ticket. I mused, watching the Space Needle's lights hum with evening energy. Chris grinned, pulling me close. "Technically, you never got that ticket," he teased. I was too distracted by the beautiful photographer with the impressive camera. I playfully swatted his arm. "Officer Ramirez, are you admitting to dereliction of duty?" He kissed my forehead. I'd say it was excellent community relations. The next day, surrounded by friends, family, and half the police department, we exchanged vows under a clear blue sky. Martinez, standing proudly as Chris's best man, delivered a speech that had everyone laughing about how terrible we'd been at hiding our relationship in the early days. Chris's father, now fully embracing his role, surprised us by organizing an honor guard of police officers for our ceremony. As we walked through the raised batons, tears filled Chris's eyes. "Never thought I'd have this," he whispered. "All of it, being out, being happy, being married to the man I love, with my whole family here supporting us. Our honeymoon took us on a photography tour through Europe, combining Chris's newfound passion with my professional expertise. Over 3 weeks, we captured stunning landscapes and cityscapes, creating memories in every country we visited. Chris's photography skills had blossomed since our first lessons, and we often compared shots of the same scenes, his focus on people and movement beautifully complementing my architectural style. When we returned home, we moved into a new apartment overlooking Elliott Bay. Chris continued his police work, now openly wearing our wedding rings on duty, while I expanded my photography business. Sometimes he'd stop by my shoots in his patrol car, bringing coffee and stealing quick kisses when no one was looking. 1 year after our wedding, I held my first gallery showing. The centerpiece was a series called Night Patrol, featuring photographs that captured quiet moments of city life, many showcasing a police or an officer in various locations around Seattle. The final image in the series was the one that started it all, the harbor at night, with police lights reflecting off the water. At the gallery opening, Chris stood proudly beside me as I explained the inspiration behind the collection. Looking at him in his dress uniform, his brown eyes still making my heart skip a beat, I couldn't help but smile at how far we'd come from that first traffic stop. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, catching my expression. "Just that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments," I replied, like getting pulled over by a handsome cop who has a secret interest in photography. He laughed and pulled me close, not caring who saw. "Best traffic stop of my career," he whispered, as we stood there surrounded by friends and family. Looking at photographs that told our story, I realized that sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, even on a quiet street at midnight, with red and blue lights flashing in your rearview mirror. Through Chris's willingness to embrace his true self and my determination to follow my artistic passion, we had created something beautiful, a life together built on trust, mutual respect, and unwavering support. Every photograph we took together became a testament to the power of love that dares to shine, even in the darkest corners of society.